to this week's episode of HerTake. A little bit of a different scene, but we do have 3 guests on the show. And what better of a day to talk than on National Championship Day? Northwestern winning it today on their home turf. So today's episode is going to be a little bit of a special one. We're going to have a lacrosse edition. And we're joined by Anya, former HerTake hosts, Gabe and Sid, very expert lacrosse speakers, so to say. So we're excited to kick the episode off. I think just kicking it off, the best question to always go with and kick up our discussion is initial reactions. Obviously, Northwestern winning this one. It was close for most of it. They pulled away in those last 5-ish minutes of
shut them out the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah, shut them out the whole fourth quarter. So that was a huge performance. Obviously, so much to talk about on the defensive end for Northwestern, but also offensively. There were surprise freshmen. There was, almost a shutout of Maddie Taylor. She did have NCAA tying in the national championship game, tying a record for most assists, so she still contributed in that aspect. But let's start with Yan, I guess. Initial reactions. You were there covering. Initial reactions to the game and what you saw from this Northwestern squad.
Yeah, I think coming into this game, I think this was always going to be a toss-up with the 2 best teams in the country. And obviously this was the same matchup last year, Northwestern versus North Carolina. But I think that year North Carolina was clearly favored. But this year we saw a team in North Carolina that was the top-scoring offense in the country, was gaining significant victories on every other opponent besides Northwestern, which it lost to in overtime in the regular season, and a Northwestern team that was undefeated since the end of March after losing to Ohio State, went on this big win streak, including beating UNC and number 3 Maryland, number 4 Hopkins, and coming in as the number 1 seed. So I think these teams were pretty evenly matched, and I think we saw that throughout the game, but I think ultimately Northwestern towards the end just was the better team, made better defensive stops with the goalkeeping and Jen Cuoco and in between the pipes and the defense, and players like Gabriella McAllister stepping up in place of Lucy Monroe, who's got injured, Maddie Taylor having the best passing game of her career, and I think just Northwestern came out and was the better team when it mattered the most.
Wow, that was an excellent job of not sounding like a fan, and I will be doing so much worse.
Just you wait.
Sid and I were waving the flags. It was a great time. No, I as a fan, I love to see it from a more objective standpoint. I think it was just a really cool win to see from the Northwestern perspective. Also, we'll get into this later, but the fact that it was in Evanston, too, outside of the Eastern time zone for the first time in so long, is just really, really cool to see from that kind of time zone perspective. But also just the fact that Northwestern had so many unsung heroes today. I think it's very representative of a Northwestern team that had to change its identity this year. When you had so much effort into the Maddie Taylor Northwestern lacrosse team last year, to see kind of a reinvented offense where she's being able to take a step back, being more of an assists weapon for Kelly Montehiller's team, I think it was just a real testament to Northwestern's season. Credit to Anya, too, on the UNC front. A few weeks back, I did say I think UNC had the better overall season when you look at it objectively, and I think they deserve the number 1 seed. But if you're going into this playoff atmosphere from the minute the schedule and the bracket got released, I would have been easily most afraid to play Northwestern because you look at the momentum, you look at the roster and how it's developed as the seasons come on late. And I think that kind of just proved to be true. Northwestern may not have been the best team the full season, but when the lights were the brightest, when the moment mattered most, Northwestern played like the best team. You can argue that with some of the calls. I think UNC fans are up in arms a little bit, but that's a discussion for
Elephant
later.
in the room.
Yeah.
Like Gabe, I was in the stands. Low key, came on the show because I wanted to hear the Yan Gabi Egozi and Anya Weerapana expert and lacrosse analysis. Gabe is just the cherry on top, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing atmosphere. my initial reaction, if we're being honest, is it's so peak. It's so, as a fan. But I think in terms of the way the game went, being down 10-7 versus being down 9-8 was such a momentum shifter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just that gave like a spark for the team that I think they really rode out through the rest of the game. And also, I think we're going to talk about it too, but like the biggest thing that I noticed, at least on the entire day, was just how much this seemed to mean to like the lacrosse community in Chicago and in Illinois and in the Midwest writ large. It was so cool to see like who was in the stands and how packed the stands were for Northwestern, which genuinely I don't think it has ever happened to this level. I was telling my friends, like, I don't think I've seen this many Northwestern fans at Martin Stadium for a game ever.
Yeah.
Any sport.
Yeah.
I mean, if you doubted that Sid and I were there for a moment, we have the vocal fry and in my case, the sunburns to prove it.
And you're on the NNN Sportsnet Instagram. So
Yes.
it's proven. I will say, when we were looking out from the press box, they announced like the number of people there. You're like, there's no way there's 8,000.
Yeah. I
People
don't think
here.
they
There
could.
were
I don't
more.
think they could
Yeah.
count the student section
Yeah.
well enough.
Oh,
I think that's
okay.
what, because they were just like, I'm not gonna lie. We were a little tiny bit late, and like they just handed us a ticket. I don't think they
Okay.
Yeah.
accurately counted like the number of
Okay.
students who got student tickets.
Yeah.
I think it would have been easily
Yeah, because
1,500.
we were saying it was even more packed than some of the football games.
Oh.
Way more, like
You
at
know?
least as far as
Yeah.
Northwestern
It was
fans, way more
Northwestern
packed.
fans.
Yeah.
What is a leatherneck? Nobody knows. But people
And-
know that the national championship's
Yeah,
happening.
I mean, everyone was there. I'd have to say the one thing that really stuck out to me was Jenica Cuoco. I think like you talk about what she's done every game this year, and she's had her ups and downs, yes. But I don't think I've ever seen like a performance. There were some possessions where Cuoco had like 3 back-to-back saves,
Yeah.
and you're sitting there like, what's gonna happen? When does UNC take over? She honestly shut down Chloe Humphrey. I haven't looked this up yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Chloe Humphrey had her lowest shooting production of the year, or even of her career.
She was
thus
2
far.
for 11.
Yeah, I mean, she was completely thrown off not only by Cuoco but also Mary Carroll, who was just a
Yeah.
specialist on defense today, and I think it really came down to defense, and defense wins championships.
Yeah.
So at the ending of the day, I really think that was their strong suit, and it was a lot of the supporting cast today for Northwestern that got it done. I mean, Gabriella McAllister, and we're going to talk about her in a little bit, but you talk about bursting onto the scenes and what a time to do that. Like, doing it in the national championship, being a freshman, like, stepping up in the moments when someone so big for the team goes down. It's insane. And, some people say XYZ about Maddie Taylor. Why is she not on the all team for the tournament? We won't know. But 6 assists, she was dishing it out. She was getting it done in other ways, and everyone kind of... It felt like the pieces just fit together today.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think back to the first conversation I had with Kelly Monty-Hiller after I can't remember what game it was that I first covered for Northwestern lacrosse, but I just remember her emphasis was on not making, not forcing Maddie to be the sole bearer of the burden for Northwestern. And I think that today I really showed just in the fact that Maddie Taylor wasn't the one scoring all the goals, she was the one assisting all the goals, and I think that really shows the fact that people have stepped up on this team. And sitting in the press conference today after the game, after they won, and just seeing, Jenica Cuoco, Gabriella McAllister, and Maddie Taylor, sitting in a row, it just, felt like to me those were, the 3 cornerstones of the Northwestern lacrosse program. The transfer that, Kelly Monty-Hiller picks out to come be a stalwart and a rock on the defensive line, a young talent that she's picked out and has shined in, the toughest moment possible, and then, just this, this absolute diamond of a player that, has shown up and shown out every single year upon year for Northwestern. It felt like it was really it's not an end of an era to say the least, but it's just it felt like such a
Full
such
circle,
full
like,
circle,
encapsulation.
exactly. And it was just really interesting for me to just be there and experience that to be my first time at a Northwestern lacrosse NCAA tournament was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a bit about Maddie Taylor already, her last game in a Northwestern jersey. It's a bittersweet moment probably for her. I know in the presser she talked a little bit how this was full circle because her freshman year she won it, obviously went back for the past 3 years, didn't win until this year again. So it's kind of all come around full circle for her. What are your initial thoughts just on her legacy that she's left here? Obviously, Northwestern has had so many goats of the sport that have gone through here. Izzy Skane. Today it was announced Maddie Taylor tied her record with points here. So, you know, what do you think her legacy is at Northwestern now? Like, with all things said and done, and how do you think her role here? I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, we're going to replace it." You know, like that. That's not an easy role to just, you know, fix or patch up with other players. But how do you think Kelly Monty-Hiller and everyone else a part of Northwestern next season can really try to fill the void of Maddie Taylor?
Yeah, I think I kind of want to start, but like I was kind of thinking, because I think we all saw as they were announcing the all tournament team, waiting, and they announced the most valuable player, and it's Chloe Humphrey. It's like, what? Right? And the same thing happened for the Touraton too. But I think, like I was saying it, like immediately my first reaction to that was, yeah, Madison Taylor will take over apologies and championships, right? Like I think the biggest thing is that, you know, this Northwestern team has proven that it's not about, like, you know, the names will change, right? Northwestern as a program is dynastic in the way that it's organized, the way that it's structured, right? Like, they have consistent recruitment, they have consistent transfer calls, they have consistent, like, abilities to develop, like, top players in the sport year over year over year. And, like, I thought it was, especially, like, if you consider, like, the event itself, like, hosting the Final Four and all that, I think this weekend really cemented that Northwestern is, like, a dominant force, like, akin to, like, in the soccer world, like, the Real Madrid, Manchester United of, like women's lacrosse.
Yeah.
Like, it is a, like, dynastic, generational, it will always be there in terms of, like, as long as Kelly Monty-Hiller is coaching at Northwestern, which I think is probably going to be for a very long time.
Absolutely. I think there's just an aspect of it, too, where, like, you may not see those players right away, but they're going to step up. Because before Maddie Taylor, there was Izzy Skane, and then we said Izzy Skane's gone, who's going to take over? Before Izzy Skane, there was Selena Lasota, and we said who's going to take over, and then it was Izzy Skane, right? There's just an aspect to it of, you don't know necessarily who it's going to be. Is it going to be Dee Foster next year? That could be the logic. I mean, after Gabriella McAllister's game today, I think she could be an integral part of that. Maybe not next year, but at least in the future. So I think there's just an aspect of it, too. You're going to get top recruits in because it's a program like Northwestern. You're going to develop them over time. I mean, when Maddie Taylor was a freshman, did we think that she was going to break the single-season all-time scoring record? Like, I don't know if I could say that personally. I didn't follow the team when she was a freshman, but I don't know how many people said that at the time, right? So I think there's an aspect to it of you just don't know who's going to step up, but you can trust Kelly Monty-Hiller's coaching enough to know that someone will step up. And it may be like a BC situation where BC had a bit of a down year, and after losing someone like Rachel Clark and having that kind of new team dynamic to play with. But I feel like I can rest assured knowing that someone will take over that lead attacker role and make sure that Northwestern is still scoring, 13, 14 goals a game.
Yeah, before I touch upon the future of this Northwestern team, I do also want to talk about Maddie Taylor's legacy as someone that covered her for 3 years of her career and also followed her in her freshman year. I think she's someone that really embodies, like, a player who will do everything for her team, and I think especially that last season when she broke the single season's goals record and she was held scoreless in the national title game. I mean, like, you could just see, like, how much weight she was carrying for Northwestern, being kind of like the top scorer by a clear mile. And I remember, like, Jenny Levy talking in the press conference last year at the Final Four in Boston, where she was like, for a player like Maddie Taylor, you can't let her go unguarded, and they put like 4 defenders on her, and I think that just shows like the gravity she has. And even today was not her best scoring game. She had just 1 goal towards the end of the game, but again, not just the 6 assists, but I believe she also had like 4 draw controls and like several ground balls, and she's just always been a player who scores goals, yes, but just has been a player who's been so useful both in the draw circle with assisting, and there's something that has grown about her in the last few years. Like, she wasn't as good of a playmaker her freshman and sophomore year as she was in these last 2 years of her as a player. So I think she's just someone that really like gets better and better every year and really just embodies someone who that does everything for her team. But I will say, I think something that I was worried about like to start the season was that Northwestern, besides Maddie Taylor, there were a lot of transfers on the team last year. And this year there were also really good transfers, but I think Kelly Monte-Hiller did a really good job of kind of allowing some of the newer players to shine. I mean, Aditi Foster went from someone who didn't start a single game last year, and she scored 54 goals this year. I mean, Noelle Cumberland she was someone that rode the bench and kind of only came in the game during garbage time in previous years, and she was first team All Big Ten. I mean, Gabrielle McAllister, Kate Rotana-Proxa, I mean...
Abby Lacasio,
yeah,
2 goals in the championship
Abby
game.
Lacasio as well. Like, these are players that maybe weren't on people's radars that much headed into the season, but they made really big impact for Northwestern this season. I think
Kelly
that
Monte-Hiller allowed them to
yes,
take big
and
steps.
I think that guys kind of goes to show how good Kelly Monte-Hiller is with development. That's always been the thing that she's strongest at, and I think it really showed this season.
Totally.
I mean, gotta give a shout out to Noelle Cumberland, and also, I mean, Aditi Foster, what a player! She's just like I've been so impressed with her this season. I think like, yeah, it's just been really cool just seeing all these.
She is the first player to go give a hug to the player that scored a goal, or to celebrate the hardest, in my opinion, on the field. She always brings it.
She got a hat trick in 7 minutes one game this year.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Shout out Big Ten Plus.
That was me.
Well,
That's my graph.
Nice.
with all the talk about the game, I want to kind of shift it in broader scope too. I know you guys hinted we will be talking about it, but this tournament this weekend being hosted in the Midwest, first time that's happened where, you know, the NCAA women's lacrosse Final Four was taken to the Central Time Zone, and you know, we talk about the numbers, the gravity and the weight, the size of how many people showed out today, how many Northwestern fans showed out today. What do you think this all means for the sport of women's lacrosse? I mean, we talk about, you know, the growth of the sport already. You have these big stars, these big names, how much, you know, all of these teams have done to really put on the events and bring a show for fans across the country. But what does it mean to have it in Chicago this year? And do you see this happening again? How do you see like the growth building upon itself from here?
Yeah, Yenny, I wanted to ask you something about this actually. Do you know what the attendance was in previous years for the national championship game?
Last year was 14,000 in Boston.
But it was in
Okay.
Gillette. It was in Gillette.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
Or
I didn't know if
2000
we
in Gillette, and
like
also
had it beat by a
East
wide
Coast.
margin or something, but
This felt more like this
Because Gillette is so much bigger.
It's capped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's-
Gillette is huge, and also I just like, again, like there's just the geographic aspect to it. Like it's a lot
Yeah.
easier for people from Maryland and New Jersey to drive up to Boston.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I want to preface this response by saying that I've spent my quarter on JR living in New Jersey, at my home in New Jersey, and I had to find a weekend to come back, and of course I was gonna pick this weekend because I knew how historic and significant this championship was, not just for Northwestern, but for, again, the lacrosse in the Midwest. Because I think on Thursday in the Northwestern press conference, they were joking about how when Kelly first kind of built up Northwestern as a program, she joked about how in the Midwest it was just Northwestern and it just felt like Siberia because there was no one else that was there. And I think just seeing how much Northwestern and Kelly specifically has done for the sport. I mean, you see all these other coaches from teams outside the East Coast, like Michigan, Stanford, Colorado, really strong teams. They're all, I mean, Hopkins as well, not in the Midwest. Like, these are all coaches who were developed by Kelly and went on to build up their own programs. And I think all of that, I mean, like, Tim McCormick talked about how, like, Kelly and Scott were the ones that gave him this opportunity, and he was able to build up Hopkins into a first-time Final Four team. And I think what the attendance this week and the sport this week kind of was a celebration of the sport's geographic expansion. And I think it's also like a really big testament like to sending a message like lacrosse is not East Coast sport, because it feels like every year there's this like big debate in the women's lacrosse community about like where to host the Final Four, and there's some people who are like, oh no, we should just have it in like Annapolis, Maryland every year because it's gonna draw 20,000 people. But it's like, if you do that, you're never gonna grow the sport. But they took a risk this year to move it to Chicago, and the risk paid off, and I think this Final Four was a testament to that.
Yeah, Nan said it so perfectly, I think, with just Kelly's coaching legacy. And because I was thinking back to it, and when you were mentioning this Iberia comment, I'm like, well, Michigan has a really good team. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah, that coach was a Kelly Hiller product. And then I was trying to think, I was like, and I just like kept rolling through my head. I'm like, yeah, these were all people that like built up their programs because they were first under the tutelage of Kelly Hiller. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so great to see. And we saw Lacrosse Night in Chicago, too, the past few years as being this raving success. So it was awesome to really see it come together all in one, and maybe we'll see the West Coast eventually, or with the likes of Colorado being a top 8 seed, or some of the California-based programs that are on the up and up. But for the time being, like, I selfishly could not be happier to have it in the Midwest, even as a resident Massachusetts native on here. It was just awesome to see. I think also just the fact that the Northwestern students pulled out for it in the way they did, and really showed out to a level that we haven't really seen. I mean, as students in our time here, just like the people who are willing to like learn about it too. I saw so many people being educated in the stands today, which was, I thought, another amazing thing, because half the battle is just getting people to learn the actual rules of lacrosse.
The number of people who shouted, "You can do that!"
Or the amount of, I heard I think this also speaks to the fact that it was a very unselfish game from Maddie Taylor, but the amount of people that were like, which number is Maddie Taylor getting? Because she wasn't scoring every goal, was like really funny to see. But yeah, I just think that the atmosphere was incredible. It might not beat the Gillette Stadium records, but I think as far as like how packed the stands feel and how intimidating it can be, people always say it's a more intimidating place to play when it's really tight and compact, and then you have that.
That's true.
I mean, like, as someone who was at both games, I think this year's game felt bigger.
I think I'll add on to that with I think like the perspective of like Kelly Hiller has had this tangible impact on so many other Midwestern college programs that have become like genuine contenders in their own right. Like, I thought it was really cool. What I saw as like a fan just walking to the game was how many like just people from the area, like, who were just like kids getting into lacrosse in the Midwest, or like I saw like ETHS lacrosse, Marist High School lacrosse. I saw Loyola for people in the area who love wrestling. And it's the same thing for the national championships for any sport. But you could really tell, I feel like this weekend, that the people in the Midwest who have been operating their lowly, like...
She just seems like someone who's like really in tune with like what's going on with lacrosse and women's sports. I think it would be cool to have her on.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Gabi McCallister. I just wanna know, like...
Gabi to Gabi.
Gabi to Gabi. Like, what
you guys are gonna gab.
What it's like, what is it like to just burst onto the scenes
I wanna know
in
what
the
she ate
national
for
championship?
breakfast.
Yeah, I wanna know what the routine, like, everything. Ooh,
Play by play, all the way up.
She
to
brought
the
out the
finals.
Wheaties today.
I need to mimic that for finals season.
Well, hopefully us having this discussion manifests us a Northwestern women's lacrosse guest. But as we manifest and hope, we say farewell to the show this week. Thank you all for coming on.
So great to have our first show with 3 guests.
Yeah.
Great discussion here. Great stuff for women's sports today. A win for women's lacrosse. And we'll send it off to HerTake.